Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! In Business. Okay, I haven't been doing so hot on the whole business casual thing recently. My khakis got messed up on the walk home from a long day. But, when I say hello, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! In Business Casual, I'm the RJB0. Just kind of imagine that I'm actually wearing the business casual, and the whole experience of the thing will be much more fulfilling to you guys. Anyway, as my cat attempts to, make my life a living hell over there, I'd like to explain a couple of things today that I have gotten wrong, and I also want to talk about War Gods because, I don't know, they're just cool. And it's going to be kind of a deck review, but since my computer doesn't run DevPro so hot and they haven't put them on up on DN, I can't do a real deck review for them yet. I just want to really talk about them now that they're hot on the press. So first I want to talk about my last deck review, or it wasn't my last deck review, was it? I don't know. My Photon Gallaxy rant, which got a spectacular amount of flaming going on in the comment section because people believe that I was too harsh on it. And as far as I have convinced so far, I don't think it deserves that much better than what I gave it. I mean, I think I compared it to like Reptilians in its competitiveness, and I suppose that's an insult to Reptilians, so I'm sorry, never mind. It's not that bad, but I think that so far I have no reason to believe it's anything better than a bad deck that people just want to play because it looks pretty. But that is where you guys come in. I don't want to just leave it there because I know I'm going to get massive amounts of flaming, and because I want to see what you guys can do. So right now I'm issuing my challenge to you guys to, well, the challenge is going to look like this. People send me deck profiles that they have made for Photon Galaxy decks, and if I think any of them are halfway decent, in fact, I might just pick a top 5 for them, or top 3 for them, and I will choose those and I will feature them on my channel with the person who named them. There are no restrictions. You don't need to buy the deck. You just gotta send me the deck list that you think is good, and I'll play around with it for a little while on DN, or I'll just check it out, and then if, it makes it to the top 3, I will put it up on my channel. I'll figure out how I'm going to do that, but I really think that if I am going to find out how to make that deck good, or if I'm going to give you guys the chance to voice your opposition to my opinions on the deck, I think that this is the best way to do it. Another place that I've been wrong in the past that I got a lot of heat from had to do with the E-Dragons. Back when I was talking about the ridiculousness of Lord of Tachyon Galaxy, I said that E-Dragons were going to be extremely splashable. However, they weren't going to do so hot on their own because they required a ton of graveyard setup. While I was wildly wrong about that, and I'm amazed at just how much those decks blew my prediction out of the water, it's kind of understandable that I had no idea what I was talking about then because the baby dragons hadn't been announced yet, and they just completely changed the playstyle of the deck. I mean, without them, the deck would be, on its own, would be slow and unreliable and require a ton of setup. But with the baby dragons, the deck is just ridiculous and dumb, and it's the reason why I'm unlikely to be able to do a whole lot of really interesting deck reviews in the next couple of months, because a lot of decks are just going to be blown out of competition by Prophecy and E-Dragons and by Evil Swarm. So it's ridiculous, blowing my mind there. But I really want to get on to talking about War Gods, because this is coming out of Judgment of the Light, and I want to talk about it in advance because this stuff is really cool, and I highly recommend you guys check this out on DevPro and try it around a little bit. I think this is definitely a deck to be watching the market for. I think that if you can get some of the cards that will be heavily used in this deck, I'm not sure what those look like yet, but if you can, then, and if you can do that now, then it's a good idea. So let's actually talk about the deck. I want to go over the best cards of the deck. There are a couple that are not so hot that I'm just going to kind of skip over, but I want to talk about the general playstyle. So the deck seems to really revolve around the effects of War Gods activating in your hand and graveyard. It's very strange in that way, in that it doesn't rely on a whole lot of field presence, but relies on having lots of graveyard setup and lots of stuff in your hand. The first card that you use in order to set up your grave in your hand is Yamato, which is also known as War God Yamato, which makes sense because they're war gods. Its effect is, once per turn during your end phase, you can add one War God monster from your deck to your hand, then search one card from your hand, or then send one card from your hand to the graveyard. So you grab a card from your deck to your hand, put a card in your graveyard. You can only use you can only have one of him on the field at a time. He's a Beast Warrior 1800, so he's searchable by Tenki. So that's pretty amazing, because he doesn't sound that amazing until you actually get into the other monster effects. For instance, Habakiri. Now this is the absolutely ridiculous one. I don't even know how they thought this was a good idea. During damage calculation, when a War God Beast Warrior type monster you control battles with an opponent's monster, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. The original attack of your battling monster is doubled during damage calculation only. The fun thing about this card is that it stacks. So if your opponent doesn't chain to it, you can put another one on top of it and double it twice. It doesn't say anything about that effect being limited to once per turn, but it basically gives the deck 4 Honests. 4 Honests for the deck. 3 of which are searchable. Kind of ridiculously dumb. So that on its own would make the deck really crazy, using Yamato. But then you've got Hetsuka, which is not amazing, but I think that running it in 1 will be pretty great, because it's basically like the Necro Gardna of protecting your monsters from card effects. Its effect is, during either player's turn, when a face-up War God monster you control is targeted by a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard and negate that effect. So if your monster is targeted, if it's going to be deprisoned, if your opponent is going to try and use a monster's effect on it, which usually targets, you can banish this guy from your graveyard and negate the effect of that monster. And these are all things that you can put in your hand for free with Yamato, or put in your grave for free. So this deck, though it doesn't seem like it would be that fast, is actually going to be much faster than it looks. The next one, this is the really good one, besides, Habakiri. If you control a War God, a Beast Warrior type monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one face-up card your opponent controls, and destroy that target. So this card, you put it in your graveyard with Yamato, and you plus off of that immediately, at any point you want. So, crazy stuff going on right there. So you can put protection in your graveyard, or you can put destruction in your graveyard, which gets even crazier when you consider War God Advent, whose effect is, it's a spell card, whose effect is, if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, target one War God monster in your graveyard and one of your banished War God monsters, special summon both those targets. They cannot be used as Xyz material except for the Xyz summon of a Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast type monster, which could go for Diamond Direwolf, and it could go for a lot of other things, including the War God Emperor Susanoo. And this guy is the crazy part of the deck. Like, if the rest of it wasn't good enough already, you've got this guy who is a rank 4 who requires 2 level 4 War God monsters. It's got 24/1600. This card can attack every monster your opponent controls once. Once per turn, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, add one War God monster from your deck to your hand, or send one War God monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only control one face-up Susanoo. So basically, you can add the Honest to your hand, or you can send the little poppy dude to the graveyard with this guy, and then you can attack as many times as you like per turn, as long as your opponent still has monsters. If you add in War God Advent, this guy's summonable with the activation of a spell card, basically. And he is light, so he's honestable. He's Beast Warrior, so you can put a Horn of the Phantom Beast on him. This deck is just crazy looking. It looks like it's got the consistency deal that Fire Fist has always had going for it, but unlike Fire Fist, it has unfair plays in it. It has very good plays that are just dumb, like being able to put Hetsuka or Murakumo in the graveyard to protect your monster, or pop it pop an opponent's monster, and then go Advent and just summon this guy on the field and be able to search out an Honest or a card that can destroy any monster on the field, just mind blown. And the Honest dude gets even better when you consider Sword Manifesting War God, which I think is a card that you can use in 1 or 2, whose effect is activate one of these effects. It's a normal trap card, by the way. Target one War God monster in your graveyard, add that to your hand, or target one of your banished War God monsters, return that target to the graveyard. So your opponent attacks into your War God monster, thinking that you probably don't have the Habakiri in your hand, and then you can just activate this card, add the Habakiri to your hand, enter the damage step, smack them with the Habakiri. So many crazy plays coming out in this deck. I am really excited for it, and I hope that you guys are too. I want to really encourage you guys to try this challenge because I want to see what happens with this deck. With all the negative feedback that came back toward me about the Photon Gallaxy thing, and with, just how cool the deck looks like it could be if it were good, I just kind of want to see what you guys come up with. So hit those testing sites or start cracking away at your collection and shoot me your deck list, and I might feature you on my channel. But until then, I got a jet.